Alright guys, it's your boy and I'm back with another video. Now this video, obviously as you can see from the title, is going to be Wolverine versus the tanks from Overwatch and why, in my opinion, using evidence, which I will provide throughout the video, he does not have as good of a time in Overwatch as he does in Rivals when it comes to his whole, tank buster playstyle. Now, obviously, if you've watched any of my previous Overwatch Marvel Rivals videos, it's pretty much the same rules here. Obviously, no lore-based stuff, and it's pretty much just gonna be gameplay mechanics, abilities. Wolverine. We're gonna discuss the Phoenix team up later, but for the most part, it's just gonna be base Wolverine. And the tanks from Overwatch do get access to their perks, but we'll also do them without their perks. And for the most part, it doesn't really change much. But yeah. Anyways, let's just get it straight into the video. Alright, for Wolverine's abilities, I'm just gonna put it up on the screen. You can pause it to read it, but I'm gonna go over each of them briefly since I'm pretty sure I've never done it before on this channel. But his primary fire is just a 4-hit combo that deals damage based on the overall enemy's health. So it does percentage-based damage and doesn't do like a set amount of damage like most characters. His second ability is just a short dash that he has that deals damage and also builds up like his rage. His third ability is the kidnap that everyone knows and fears, right? And we're gonna get into why that's not much of a problem for Overwatch tanks. But essentially, everyone knows the kidnap. He grabs you, slams you, and then he just pretty much fucks you essentially. His E pretty much just gives you the extra health or the extra shield. I'm pretty sure it is. And it does last, and it is pretty strong actually. But again, that's more survivability for Wolverine. And then his ultimate is just the attack that knocks enemies in the air, and I'm pretty sure you get CC'd as well because you can't really do anything while you're in the air. And then yeah, he slams down and it does like pretty much a fuck ton of damage. So oh yeah, and two, yeah, he also has his passive as well, which just builds up his rage, which essentially just allows him to do more damage with every attack that he does. But yeah, now that we've gone on for Wolverine's abilities, now we'll start to move into the individual matchups that he might have with the Overwatch tanks. All right, so the first matchup we have for Wolverine is going to be against the so-called poster boy tank for Overwatch, which to a lot of people might be Winston, but I actually think it's Reinhardt. And yeah, just starting off with Reinhardt. Now, first of all, I did have a small debate with my friend that did tell me that the Wolverine grab does go through shield, like a Magneto shield, for example. And I think it does. But the reason why I still think someone like Reinhardt would be able to easily counter it is that he still has his charge. And that charge pretty much one shots 250 HP targets. Now Wolverine isn't a 250 HP target, but that charge will pretty much leave Wolverine very low. He can just get comboed and killed by at that point by Reinhardt. And even if he has his passive, it's just not going to be fun for Wolverine. And Reinhardt just counters it by the fact that again, like he has his charge, so he can easily just get out of Wolverine's backline. And he might even be able to take out a couple, might be able to take out a support or a DPS or two, right? And that's really why the charge won't work against Reinhardt. Now, yeah, obviously, with a lot of these characters, they're not always gonna have the ability that like gets them out of danger. But it's like the same thing with rivals. Emma isn't always gonna have like her diamond form. But if you're smart and you're a good Emma and you know there's a Wolverine running around, then you have the cooldown to counter it, right? So that would be what a Reinhardt would do in this situation. Anyways, moving on to the next tank that would probably counter him, right? Being Orisa. Now, Orisa is just a very terrible matchup for Wolverine in general. Uh, Not only is she tanky as fuck, right? Because again, she's pretty much unkillable. But the way her fortified works and combine that with the fact that she also has her spear, it's just not gonna be a fun time for Wolverine. So not only is she almost borderline unkillable, but she also does a fuck ton of damage with her primary fire. And if she does get grabbed by Wolverine, she just fortifies or she just javelins. She does the javelin the spin, right? And she takes no damage from the Wolverine burst and probably even the backline as well. If she has somewhat competent healers and a competent team, they will see their only tank get like speared into the backline, and they will at least try to give her a little bit of healing. And if they do that, then yeah, she's just going to live, bro. There's no way she honestly dies there if she has pretty much even two of her relevant cooldowns, because the whole Wolverine grab, yeah, unless he does it when she was already low, if she's full health, I can guarantee you it's not going to work because she just javelins him, throws him away. Wolverine needs to be up close to do any damage. And yeah, that's just going to be the start of the issues for Wolverine because now he's yeah, sure, he kidnapped her and stuff, but now he can't do damage because he got speared. And if he tries to run up, Orisa deadass just fucking melts him. Like it's not even close and it's not even funny. Orisa will actually straight up just delete him, especially if she's hitting headshots. And not even to mention the perks, because I didn't even want to touch on that yet. But yeah, it would just be very fucking bad. But Orisa is like probably the strongest tank in Overwatch, so maybe that one's to be expected. But we're going to move on to some other tanks that would just completely clap Wolverine shit. Okay, now so moving on to Doomfist. Yeah, Doomfist is also just another tank that Wolverine has a very bad time with. First of all, taking Doomfist into the backline, I mean, isn't really going to achieve much since Doomfist goes into the backline anyways as a dive tank. And yeah, it's the same reason why doing the Wolverine grab with tanks like, you know, Venom and maybe even Hulk and rivals isn't too effective for Wolverine because again, these tanks have crazy mobility and can, for the most part, unless they don't have their cooldowns, they can just get out anyways. But Doomfist is going to be like that, but on mega crack because not only does he have even more mobility than Wolverine, right? He also does way more damage. He can CC, right? So essentially, Doomfist punch, his empowered punch is pretty much like a Thor hammer, but if it like CC'd you and like did more damage if it hit you to a wall like a Emma Frost kick, which is just absolutely insane. The fact that he can do this. So honestly, Wolverine taking a Doomfist into the backline is probably even worse than the Doomfist having to spend the cooldown to go into the backline himself because that just means Doomfist can just do his work there and just get out for free even because again, he didn't even have to use a cooldown to get in there. And yeah, it's just very bad when you consider the fact that Doomfist also has his deflect, which again, the whole team can just team fire Doomfist and he just eats that shit. He just eats all of it with his deflect, gets out of there. You know, it's probably taking out a couple supports even. I really don't see how he won't. Anyone that's played against a good Doomfist knows exactly what I'm talking about. That is not going to be a fun interaction at all for anyone involved. And yeah, that's just another tank that hard counters Wolverine. Another tank we're gonna get into is Wrecking Ball. Now again, similar to the other dive tanks, Wrecking Ball is just pretty much Venom but on mega crack. Like he's pretty much Venom but on insane crack, right? He's like Venom if Venom was actually scary, right? So not only does Wrecking Ball have better mobility than Venom because he has a swing that he can use multiple times, he also has his ball form that just allows him to roll away from the Wolverine grab if Wolverine was even able to grab him at all, right? He has his ball form that he can just use to roll out of the back line. Not to mention that he has his swing. He has multiple swings even. So it's gonna be pretty hard for Wolverine to bait out the cooldowns on the swing and all that stuff because he can just swing again. But not only that, Wrecking Ball also does crazy amounts of damage because he has two fucking like machine guns that he just absolutely melts you with. But not only that, he also has shields as well. So again, it's just gonna be the same issue, but it's just not gonna be fun for anyone involved. Again, Ball is already a dive tank, so Wolverine taking him into the back line is just not fun for everyone because now it just makes his job kind of easier. And sure, you can say, yeah, well, he's gonna have the Wolverine on his ass. Well, guess what? Wrecking Ball can just tank most of the damage, to be honest. And if he's really taking so much damage, he can just roll out or swing out, or he can just pop his shields and survive again. And it's just that's just really where the main issue comes in, right? Wolverine is not doing enough damage to these tanks because they have so many ways to just live and survive that rivals tanks for the most part aren't like afforded. You know, no rivals tank really has like a crazy deflect or like crazy shields, you know, especially with the way armor works in Overwatch, where it just feels like this tank is just unkillable. You know, the best you could say is like Venom, and even Venom doesn't come close to some of the casual shit that almost every Overwatch tank has. And yeah, that's just another example of what's gonna happen when Wolverine tries to do his whole gimmick with the Overwatch tanks. All right, now just to speed this up a little bit, I'm not gonna do every single tank individually, but we're just gonna go through some of them because this video is already getting long enough. So moving on to the next tank we have is D.Va, and again, D.Va falls into the category of all the previous tanks we've talked about. You know, pretty high damage, good mobility, very good sustainability and survivability, and the combination of all those things just make her not fun for someone like Wolverine, he takes her into the back line. Okay, fine. She probably just flies out, and she doesn't just fly even in a straight line. She can like actually fly. So that's just not gonna be fun. But even if you say she doesn't have the cooldown for the flight, one, it's on a very short cooldown, and two, she can just stall with her defense matrix. Wolverine really has no way to eat through that in a short amount of time before she gets her flight back, and she can also just parry him with her missiles as well too. Because again, Wolverine is not fucking immortal, right? And unless maybe you can say he has the team up, but we're not giving him the team up for this matchup. By the way, I'm pretty sure I said that at the start. And yeah, it's just not gonna be fun. Moving on to the next tank, we have Ramatra, and Ramatra again. Sure, he doesn't really have mobility in any sense like Diva or some of the other tanks we've talked about in the past. But the thing with Ramatra again is just that he survives, and he's just absolutely insane to kill and absolutely hard to take down for someone like Wolverine, because Wolverine takes him to the backline, and guess what? He pops the Nemesis for him, right? He just blocks and eats most of the damage, and as soon as he goes on the offense, yeah, Wolverine is going down, right? Like Ramatra does, like I'm pretty sure like 88 like damage per punch with his Nemesis form. He's probably killing Wolverine or forcing him to retreat at the very least, in like 5 to 6 punches, and yeah, that's just not gonna be fun. Imagine he takes Ramatra into the backline, Ramatra just ults and like squad wipes them. I know that's possible because I've done it before, even in Overwatch. So that's just not gonna be fun. But if you want to say Ramatra's lack of mobility will make him more susceptible, however you say it, to Wolverine grab, I can see that, but I still think most times Ramatra is probably coming out of that. Moving on to another tank, which is Maga, and yeah, Maga is just a completely horrible one-sided mismatch for Wolverine because again, it's just the combination of everything we've talked about so far. He does insane damage, so he's probably fucking melting Wolverine before Wolverine even kills him. Not to mention he also does incendiary damage, so it's just gonna kill Wolverine even faster. And guess what? If Wolverine does manage to somehow get him low, maybe with the backline or something, well, he just pops the cardiac arrest, right? Gets extra health and just starts regenning. And again, it's just not going to be fun for anyone involved. Manga is also not just a brick wall. He also has his run and his stomp. So essentially, think like the thing. Essentially, think the thing if the thing had two miniguns that also did damage over time. That is pretty much Maga. So it's just not going to be fun. Maga can just pretty much survive in the backline and probably just make his job easier. If he does get low enough, though, he can just run away with his run ability. And yeah, it's just not gonna be fun. Again, Wolverine has nothing to deal with that. Like Maga will literally like vaporize him almost immediately, to be honest, unless he has like again the life steal or he's getting like pocketed or something. But at that point, it's not even really gonna be worth it because the supports are gonna have to be pumping Wolverine with heals just to keep him alive, and he's probably still not gonna kill the Maga before the Maga can just run away or kill him or just even kill the supports. So it's just a lose-lose for everyone involved, and Maga probably also survives that. Now, eventually, I will get into the tanks that I do actually think Wolverine has a good chance, or at least a better chance than everyone else we've talked about so far against. But yeah, up until we get to that point, yeah. Now, moving on to the tank that we haven't talked about being Zarya. So again, Zarya is sort of like the pseudo Magneto of Overwatch. She has her barrier and she has like the other abilities with her, with her gun and the way it works and stuff. And yeah, it's gonna be sort of like the same thing with Wolverine. He does the dash and he does the kidnap and everything, but the reason it doesn't really work on Zarya is while yes, she is one of the tanks that is going to be more susceptible to it because she doesn't really have mobility like that. I still believe she can easily survive that situation because of her barrier, which is on a pretty short cooldown. So she's pretty much mostly always going to have it. And the barrier also gives 400 health. So 400 health is almost the amount of health that some of the tanks have. Not to mention that because it's shield, right? It takes even less damage, right? So Wolverine is already gonna take enough time to shred through that. But not only that, the more the barrier gets damaged, the more her damage goes up. So she's probably just gonna melt Wolverine as soon as he isolates himself with her, right? Not to mention that her gun is like stupidly strong for some reason. And I'm not just talking about the beam, but also the alternate fire that shoots the little like explosion thingies. And it's just a very bad time for Wolv. He's not gonna really have a fun time. Zarya most likely survives that if she has competent healers. I mean, I don't really see why a team would have like their only tank get like kidnapped and they just not try to like follow them or anything like that. But yeah, that's really it. Zarya might die if she's already low and she's in a really, really, really bad position. But most times I see her living. The only tank we haven't really talked about is Hazard, and Hazard is just sort of like the same situation, but he's a bit better in my opinion. He does decent enough damage, and I believe his abilities should allow him to survive the Wolverine kidnap. He can climb and he has his jump as well, so he can easily just jump out of the back line if he gets kidnapped. And yeah, that's pretty much it. He doesn't really put out that much damage. Sure, you can say he might not kill Wolverine, but he still definitely survives that because Hazard's block is just stupid. It's just insane. Like he probably just parries everything that not only Wolverine but even the entire backline just throws at him, and he just jumps out of there. And if he has even like one shred of heals, he lives. Like he guaranteed lives, right? So yeah, that's pretty much Hazard. Now moving on to the tanks that I wanted to get to that I was gonna say probably might get got by Wolverine and have an actually higher chance of getting got by Wolverine. There's only two tanks I think that fall into this category, and I think that is Winston and Junker Queen. And again, it's kind of self-explanatory for both. Now, Winston does have mobility, so he doesn't fall into that category. But the thing is, I don't see his survivability being that high because Winston is one of the easier tanks to kill. Don't get me wrong, yeah, when he's jumping around and all that stuff, yeah, he's pretty fucking hard to kill. But he doesn't have any like deflect or shield gimmick other than obviously his bubble, right? But his bubble is like an actual bubble. It's not like it doesn't move with him, so he places it down in the spot. And it's not really gonna help against Wolverine because Wolverine can just also enter the bubble and still keep damaging him. And yeah, that's really it. He does have his jump, which to be fair is in a very short cooldown. And I do see that giving him an advantage, but it's possible that he might not have it when he gets Wolverine grabbed. And that's why I put him in the category of could survive, but just because he doesn't have some type of like damage mitigation gimmick like most of the other tanks, he might not survive. And kind of the same thing with Junker Queen. Junker Queen doesn't really even have any shield, nor does she really have any mobility outside of maybe like her ultimate. So I don't really yeah, Junker Queen is probably the main tank I would say doesn't have a fun time against Wolverine because she can't really counter him in any way that matters. And yeah, that's really my whole take on this video. Comment down what you think if Wolverine would be better or if anything like that, because I personally think that the Overwatch tanks are just like they're just on a different tier compared to Rivals tanks, for example. They can pretty much do everything and they're pretty much like mini like raid bosses by themselves where you need like the whole enemy team working together to maybe kill them. But yeah, that's really my whole take on this topic. Subscribe. I'll have more videos coming out soon, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.